Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku was removed from the front lines. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The world was not loud when it ended. It was a high-pitched, singular frequency, a tinnitus ringing that drilled through the center of Izuku Midoriya's skull, drowning out the screams, the crumbling concrete, and the roar of fire. Then, there was only the dark. For a long time, time itself ceased to exist. There was only the sensation of floating in a viscous, cold void. Occasionally, voices drifted through the darkness, not the voices of the living, but the echoes of the vestiges within One for All. They were agitated. Nana Shimura was weeping. The first was whispering about a closing door. The fourth, Haiku Shinomori, was vibrating with a phantom pain that Izuku felt deep in the marrow of his shattered bones. Danger, the fourth quirk whispered, even in sleep. Danger. 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 But the danger wasn't sharp or immediate like a blade. It was suffocating. It felt like a heavy blanket being pressed over his face. When Izuku finally breached the surface of consciousness, the first thing he registered was the smell. It wasn't the metallic tang of blood or the acrid scent of ozone that had permeated the battlefield at Jaka City. It was sterile. Aggressively, violently sterile. The scent of high-grade disinfectant, starch linens, and recycled air that had been scrubbed of all life. His eyes fluttered open. The light was harsh, artificial, and white. He's stabilizing, a voice said. It sounded distorted, as if coming through water. Heart rate is leveling out. Brain activity is returning to baseline. Izuku tried to move his right arm. It didn't respond. Panic, cold and sharp, spiked in his chest. Did I lose it? Is it gone? He forced his head to turn, his neck stiff as rusted iron. His arm was there. It was encased in a cast that looked more like a piece of advanced machinery than medical plaster, hooked up to tubes that fed clear fluids into his veins. But it wasn't just a cast. His wrist was shackled to the bed frame. It was a padded cuff, thick and reinforced with a heavy magnetic lock. He tried the left arm. Same result. His legs, too, were secured. He wasn't just tucked in, he was restrained. Where? His voice was a ruin. It sounded like grinding stones. He coughed, a dry, painful spasm that rattled his bruised ribs. Where am I? A figure moved into his line of sight. It wasn't a nurse in scrubs, nor was it Recovery Girl. It was a man in a black tactical uniform, face obscured by a visor. He checked the monitor near Izuku's head, adjusted a dial, and stepped back without a word. Wait, Izuku rasped, the fog in his brain beginning to clear, replaced by the adrenaline of the battlefield. The memories crashed into him all at once. Shigaraki. The decay spreading across the ground. Aizawa cutting off his own leg. Gran Torino being smashed into the earth. Kaken! Kaken! Izuku shouted, or tried to. It came out as a strangled yelp. He pulled against the restraints, the metal clinking softly. Where is everyone? Shigaraki, is he? Did we win? The door to the room hissed open. It was a heavy, pneumatic sound, like the airlock of a submarine. 3 people entered. The first was Hawks. The number 2 hero looked like a ghost of his former self. His wings were gone, burned away to little more than charred nubs. His face was wrapped in bandages, only his eyes and a tuft of blonde hair visible. He moved with a stiffness that suggested deep, internal injuries. The second was Best Jeanist. He was immaculate, as always, his denim collar rising high, but his eyes were sunken, shadowed by days without sleep. He walked with the heavy tread of a general who had just presided over a massacre. And the third, All Might, Izuku breathed. Tashinori Yagi looked skeletal. The oversized yellow suit hung off his emaciated frame like a shroud. But it wasn't his physical appearance that terrified Izuku. He was used to the gaunt form of his mentor. It was the look in his eyes. All Might usually looked at Izuku with pride, with hope, or with protective worry. Today, All Might couldn't even meet his eyes. He looked at the floor tiles, his hands clenched into trembling fists at his sides. Young Midoriya, All Might whispered. The voice was hollow. All Might, why am I tied down? Izuku asked, the fear rising in his throat. Is it my quirk? Did Blackwhip go out of control again? Is it the Force quirk? Your quirks are stable, Best Jeanist said. His voice was calm, authoritative, and utterly devoid of warmth. He stepped to the foot of the bed. The restraints are a necessary precaution, not for your safety, but to ensure you remain where you are. Izuku blinked, confused. Remain? I don't understand. The villains, Shigaraki escaped, didn't he? I felt it. Before I passed out. He got away. We have to. I have to get up. If he recovers, he'll come back. I'm the only one who can. You are the only one, Hawks cut in. His voice was raspy. He leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. That's exactly the problem, kid. The paranormal liberation war is technically over, Best Jeanist stated, pulling a tablet from his coat. But society is hemorrhaging. The damage is catastrophic. Gigantomachia's rampage alone caused billions in damages and thousands of casualties. Public trust has evaporated. Heroes are retiring in droves. The police are overwhelmed. We are teetering on the edge of total anarchy. Izuku's heart hammered against his ribs. It was worse than he thought. Then I have to help. Please unstrap me. I can still fight. I can ignore the pain. If I use, no, All Might said. It was sharp, a sudden crack of sound in the sterile room. Izuku froze. All Might finally looked up. His blue eyes were swimming with tears, but his expression was rigid. You will not fight my boy. Not anymore. What? Midoriya, Best Jeanist continued, his tone clinical. We have spent the last 72 hours in emergency sessions with the Hero Public Safety Commission, the remnants of the Cabinet, and the United Nations Superhuman Task Force. We have analyzed the threat Tamura Shigaraki, and by extension, All for One, poses. Jeanist tapped the tablet, projecting a holographic map of Japan into the air above Izuku's bed. It was covered in red zones. Shigaraki possesses a search ability, Jeanist said. He can locate you. We confirmed this during the battle. You are a beacon to him. Wherever you go, destruction follows. If you remain at Ua Falls, if you go to a hospital, the hospital is targeted. If you walk through a city, that city becomes a graveyard. I know that. Izuku argued, straining against the cuffs. That's why I have to leave. I have to go out on my own. I can't stay around others. I'll lead him away from the civilians. I'll keep moving so he can't pin me down. And then what? Hawks asked softly. You run until you drop? You eat convenience store trash and sleep in alleys until your body gives out? And when you're exhausted, slow and alone, Shigaraki catches you. Hawks pushed off the wall and limped closer. And when he catches you, he takes one for all. And when he takes one for all, it's game over. Not just for Japan. For the world. Forever. Izuku fell silent. He looked at All Might, pleading for him to argue, to say that a hero doesn't hide, that a hero risks their life to save others. They are right, young Midoriya, All Might said, his voice trembling. We gambled everything on the war. We lost. We cannot gamble with you again. So what? Izuku asked, tears stinging his eyes. I just stopped being a hero. No, Best Jeanist said. You are being reclassified. He swiped the tablet. A new file appeared. The header read, Operation Stronghold. Underneath, in bold red letters, was Izuku's photo. But the label didn't say hero, Deku. It read Strategic Asset Class Alpha. Effective immediately, your provisional hero license is suspended, Jeanist announced. You are now under the direct jurisdiction of the HPSC and the National Defense Council. You are considered a resource of infinite value. A nuclear launch code that happens to be a person. A resource? Izuku repeated, the word tasting like ash. You are the only countermeasure to All for One, Jeanist explained. If you die, we lose. If you are captured, we lose. Therefore, logic dictates that you cannot be placed in a position where death or capture is a statistical probability. You're locking me up, Izuku realized. The cold horror washed over him. You're putting me in a cage. A bunker, Hawks corrected. Deep underground. Tartarus-level security, but nicer. You'll have facilities to train. You'll have access to the vestiges. You need to master one for all, kid. All of it. But you need to do it somewhere Shigaraki can't reach you. For how long? Izuku asked. The silence that followed was deafening. All Might looked away again. Until you are strong enough to kill him with 100% certainty, Genis said. Or until we find a way to neutralize Shigaraki's regeneration. Whether that takes 6 months, a year, or 5 years. 5 years? Izuku screamed, thrashing against the restraints. The monitor by his head began to beep rapidly. You can't do this. My friends, Class 1A. Are they okay? Let me see them. I need to talk to them. Class 1A survived, All Might said quietly. Bakugo he is in critical condition, but he will live. Todoroki, Uraraka, Ida, they are all alive. Let me see them, Izuku begged. Please, All Might. Just let me tell them what's happening. That is not possible, Genis said. To protect you, your location must be absolute zero. No signals in, no signals out. Your classmates cannot know where you are. If they knew, they would try to visit. If they visit, they could be tracked. Or worse, they could be used as leverage. You're going to make me disappear, Izuku whispered. You're going to let them think I abandoned them? We will tell them you have been moved for specialized treatment, All Might said, tears finally spilling down his hollow cheeks. We will tell them it is necessary. They will understand. They won't, Izuku yelled. They fought beside me. We're a team. You can't just cut me out. We can, and we must, Genis said, his voice hardening. We are not asking for your permission, Midoriya. This is a directive. The transport is waiting. Genis nodded to the soldier in the corner. The man stepped forward and pressed a button on the side of the bed. The clamps on Izuku's wrists didn't release. Instead, the entire bed unlocked from the floor, switching to hover mode. Wait! No! All Might! Izuku strained, his fingers clawing at the sheets. Don't let them do this. You said I could be a hero. You said I could save people with a smile. How can I smile in a hole in the ground? All Might placed a large, skeletal hand on Izuku's shoulder. His grip was shaking. You are the symbol now, Izuku. But symbols have to endure. Even if it hurts. Especially when it hurts. This isn't endurance, Izuku choked out. This is giving up. It's survival, Hawks said, pushing off the wall. Sorry, kid. It's a dirty play. But we're out of clean ones. The bed began to move. The soldier guided it toward the door. Wait. Please. Izuku struggled, activating one for all. Green lightning sparked around his body, 5%, 10%, but immediately, the cuffs on his wrists surged with electricity. A neurological dampener. Izuku cried out as his muscles seized, the power short-circuiting before it could build. He slumped back against the pillows, gasping for air. Don't fight it, the soldier warned. The restraints are designed to counter bioelectric quirks. They wheeled him out of the room. The hallway was long, cylindrical, and composed of gray concrete. It wasn't a hospital hallway. They were already underground. The air was cool and smelled of damp earth and recycled oxygen. Soldiers lined the corridor, standing at attention, faces covered. They weren't looking at him with admiration. They were looking at him like he was a dangerous artifact being transported to a vault. Where are we? Izuku asked, his voice weak from the shock. A secure medical facility beneath the prefecture, Genis said, walking beside the gurney. We are moving to the extraction point. They reached a heavy freight elevator. As the doors groaned open, Izuku saw the reflection of his own face in the polished steel. He looked pale, his eyes wide and haunted, a jagged scar running down his cheek. He looked small. The elevator descended. Down. 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 When the doors opened, they were in a hangar bay carved out of bedrock. A sleek, black armored transport vehicle sat waiting, its engine humming with a low, thrumming bass that vibrated in Izuku's teeth. But it was what lay beyond the hangar bay doors that caught his eye. The hangar had a viewing port, a thick slice of reinforced glass looking out into a subterranean loading dock where other transports were moving wounded heroes. And there, separated by 50 feet of distance and 3 inches of bulletproof glass, was a cluster of students. "Stop," Izuku whispered. The soldier kept pushing. "I said stop," Izuku roared, summoning every ounce of authority he had left. The soldier hesitated. Best Jeanist raised a hand, signaling a pause. Izuku turned his head. It was them. Tenya Ida was sitting on a bench, his head in his hands, his armor stripped away to reveal bandages wrapping his torso. Ochako Uraraka was standing next to him, her face dirty and streaked with dried tears, staring blankly at her phone. Tsuya Ajiri was leaning against the wall, one arm in a sling, and pacing back and forth, vibrating with rage and exhaustion, was Katsuki Bakugo. He looked terrible. He was covered in gauze, and 4-drip pole being dragged along beside him as he paced. He was yelling at a doctor, pointing aggressively at the doors leading to the secure wing, the wing Izuku was currently in. Izuku could see Bakugo's mouth moving. He could read the lips. "Where is he? Let me see the nerd. Where is he, Kaken?" Izuku whispered. He lifted his hand, straining against the cuff, pressing his fingers toward the glass. Uraraka looked up. For a second, just a split second, her eyes seemed to scan the observation windows high above the dock. She squinted. "They can't see you," Hawks said gently. "Mirror glass on their side." "They're worried," Izuku said, his voice breaking. "They don't know if I'm alive. Look at them. They're falling apart." "They are strong," All Might said. "They will hold each other up. I should be there holding them up." "You have a greater burden now," Jeanist said. He nodded to the soldier. "Move him." "No! Uraraka! Ida!" Izuku yelled, though he knew they couldn't hear. The gurney began to roll again. The view of his friends began to slide away. He saw Bakugo shove the doctor, his explosions popping weakly in his palms, sparks of nitroglycerin fizzling out. He saw Kirishima step in to hold Bakugo back, wrapping his arms around his friend. Kirishima was crying. "Let me go!" Izuku struggled again, tears streaming down his face, soaking into the pillow. "I need to tell them. Just one word. Just let me tell them I'm okay." "You're not okay, Midoriya," Hawks said, his voice devoid of his usual humor. "And neither are they. That's the reality." The transport vehicle's back ramp was open. It was a black maw, dark and empty. All Might, Izuku turned his head, locking eyes with his mentor one last time. "Please. Don't do this. If you put me in there, if you lock me away, I don't know if I can be the symbol of peace." "A symbol has to be seen." All Might closed his eyes. A single tear tracked through the grime on his cheek. "I am not asking you to be the symbol of peace right now, my boy," All Might whispered. "I am asking you to be the vessel. I am asking you to stay alive." "That's not the same thing." "It has to be." The gurney was pushed up the ramp. The interior of the transport was lined with soundproofing foam. The soldiers began locking the wheels of the gurney into the floor plates. Izuku twisted his neck, looking back out the closing ramp. He caught one last glimpse of the loading dock. Bakugo had stopped struggling. He was standing still, looking at the floor, his shoulders shaking. Uraraka had dropped her phone. She was hugging herself, looking small and terrified. The ramp hissed. The hydraulic whine filled the air. The slice of light began to narrow. The image of his friends, his family, the only people who truly understood the burden he carried, began to disappear. "I'm sorry," Izuku whispered to the empty air. "I'm so sorry." The ramp slammed shut with a heavy, metallic thud. Darkness enveloped him again, save for the red tactical lights of the transport's interior. The engine roared to life. Izuku felt the vehicle lurch forward, not moving toward the exit, but moving deeper, deeper into the earth. Away from the light. Away from the sky. He lay back, the fight draining out of him, replaced by a cold, hollow numbness. In the dreamscape of One for All, the vestiges were silent. Even they had no words for this. The second user, usually so full of rage and drive, stood with his back turned. Nana Shimura sat on the ground, her face buried in her hands. Izuku closed his eyes. He imagined the feeling of the wind on his face, the feeling of soaring through the air with Black Whip. He tried to hold on to that sensation, to lock it away in his mind before the confinement took it from him. The transport accelerated. Izuku Midoriya, the boy who ran toward danger when everyone else ran away, was being carried into the dark, and for the first time in his life, he wasn't running. He was being erased. 2 days later. Location, classified. The room was large, much larger than his dorm room at Heights Alliance. It was furnished with sleek, modern furniture, a comfortable bed, a desk with 3 high-definition monitors, a small kitchenette stocked with nutrient-dense meals, and a training area matted with impact-absorbing foam. The walls were reinforced concrete, 3 feet thick. There were no windows. Instead, there were screens that projected a live feed of the sky above, a fake blue sky with fake drifting clouds. Izuku sat on the edge of the bed. The cast on his arm had been replaced by a compression sleeve. The pain in his body was fading, thanks to the advanced medical treatment he'd received upon arrival. But the silence was louder than ever. There was a keypad on the door. It was red. Locked from the outside. A chime sounded, and a voice spoke from a speaker in the ceiling. Asset Alpha, the voice said. It was a synthesized, genderless voice. Your analysis session begins in 5 minutes. Please report to the terminal. We have incoming data on a villain cell in the Shizuoka prefecture. We require your tactical assessment. Izuku didn't move for a moment. He looked at his hands. They were scarred, crooked, and strong. Hands meant for reaching out. Hands meant for saving. Now, they were just hands meant for typing. Asset Alpha, the voice repeated. Please acknowledge. Izuku took a slow, shaky breath. He stood up. His legs felt heavy. He walked to the desk and sat down in the ergonomic chair. He tapped the keyboard. The screens flickered to life. Grainy footage from a security camera appeared. A bank robbery in progress. Low-level villains. The heroes on the scene were struggling. It was Death Arms and Kamui Woods. They looked tired. Sloppy. Analyze the threat, the voice commanded. Provide extraction route for hostages and neutralization strategy for targets. Izuku stared at the screen. He saw the villain on the left, a man with spikes protruding from his shoulders. He was leaning too much on his right leg. An old injury? No, he was guarding something in his pocket. A trigger? Izuku's eyes narrowed. The analytical mind, the part of him that mumbled and scribbled in notebooks for years, woke up. It was the only part of him allowed to exist in this room. The villain on the left, Izuku said, his voice flat. He has a detonator in his right pocket. Kamui needs to feign a frontal assault to draw his attention, while Death Arms flanks from the ventilation shaft above. If they attack directly, the hostages die. Strategy logged, the voice said. Relaying to field agents. On the screen, Izuku watched. 10 seconds later, Kamui Woods lunged. The villain flinched. Death Arms dropped from the ceiling, smashing the villain into the floor before he could reach his pocket. The hostages were safe. The villains were captured. It was a perfect victory. Efficient. Clean. Izuku felt nothing. He watched Kamui Woods wave to the camera, a weary thumbs up. Target neutralized, the voice said. Good work, Asset Alpha. Next file loading. A new video popped up. A fire in a complex. People trapped on the roof. Izuku leaned in, his green eyes reflecting the glow of the monitors. He started typing. He was safe. The world was being saved, one instruction at a time. But as he typed, Izuku glanced at the corner of the desk. There was a notebook there. Hero analysis for the future. Number 14. He hadn't opened it since he arrived. He picked up a pen, his hand hovering over the page. He wanted to write about the heroes he just saw. He wanted to write about how cool Kamui Woods' binding lacquer was. Instead, he wrote a single sentence on the first page. My name is Izuku Midoriya. I used to be a hero. He closed the book, pushed it aside, and looked back at the screen. Loading next scenario, the computer chirped. The cage was comfortable. The cage was necessary. The cage was absolute. Izuku began to type. The sky was always blue. It was a perfect, cerulean blue with exactly 3 cumulus clouds drifting from east to west at a lazy, consistent pace. Every 4 hours, the lighting shifted to a warm amber to simulate sunset, followed by 9 hours of simulated starlight, and then the cycle repeated. Izuku Midoriya hated the sky. He sat cross-legged on the floor of what the Hero Public Safety Commission called the secure residential suite, and what he called the box. It was 60 feet by 60 feet of polished concrete, high-grade steel, and sound-dampening foam. It was cleaner than a hospital and quieter than a grave. 2 weeks. It had been 14 days, 6 hours, and 12 minutes since the heavy blast doors had sealed him inside. In that time, he had not felt the wind. He had not smelled rain. He had not heard a voice that wasn't filtered through a speaker or muffled by the thick glass of the observation deck above. Izuku stared at the fake sky projected onto the ceiling. Cloud number 2 was lagging slightly. A glitch in the rendering software. He made a mental note to mention it to his handler, then immediately decided against it. If they fixed the glitch, he would lose the only unpredictable thing in his world. Asset Alpha, the intercom buzzed. The voice was crisp, female, and utterly devoid of inflection. It was Agent Kiara, his primary handler. She was a woman he had only seen through the glass partition, sharp features, a headset always on, eyes that looked at him like he was a very expensive, very volatile server stack. Morning cycle initiated, vitals check complete. Heart rate is resting at 48. Cortisol levels are slightly elevated. Did you sleep? Izuku didn't look at the camera in the corner. He continued to stare at the glitching cloud. I slept enough. Dr. Arata recommends 8 hours for optimal cognitive function. You logged 4. I was reading, Izuku said. You were analyzing the archived footage of the Kyushu debris cleanup again, Kiara corrected. We monitor the terminal usage, Alpha. Obsessing over past events is not productive. There was a structural weakness in the support pillars of the collapsed bridge, Izuku muttered, his voice dropping into that familiar, rapid-fire cadence that used to annoy Kaken. The heroes on site used a brute force lift method. If they had applied leverage to the northern fulcrum, they could have cleared the civilians 20 minutes faster. I was just checking the math. The civilians were saved. That is the only metric that matters. Efficiency matters, Izuku snapped, finally looking at the camera. His eyes, usually bright and wide, were duller now, rimmed with dark circles. If the villains attack again, when they attack again, 20 minutes is the difference between a rescue and a recovery. Precisely, Kiara said. Which is why you are in the chair, and not lifting the debris. Report to the command console. The morning briefing is starting. We have movement in the Kanagawa prefecture. Izuku sighed. He stood up, his joints popping. He was wearing the standard issue clothing they had given him, gray sweatpants, and a fitted black t-shirt made of a fire-resistant polymer. No hero costume, no red shoes. Just gray and black. He walked to the center of the room where the command console sat. It was a beast of a machine, a crescent moon of 6 high-definition monitors, a tactile keyboard, and a headset that looked like it belonged to an air traffic controller. This was his weapon now. He sat down, sliding the headset over his messy green curls. The screens flared to life. Maps, heat signatures, police band frequencies, social media scrapers, and live CCTV feeds flooded his vision. To anyone else, it would have been a migraine-inducing wall of noise. To Izuku Midoriya, who had spent his childhood dissecting hero fights frame by frame, it was a language he spoke fluently. Connected, Izuku said. What am I looking at? Police pursuit in progress. Kira's voice came through the headset clearer now. 3 assailants. Quirks, minor telekinesis, solid object phasing, and 1 unknown emitter type. They robbed a Cortex storage facility. They are heading south on the K2 highway. Izuku's eyes darted across the screens. He pulled up the traffic cameras. He saw the black van weaving through traffic, smashing into a civilian sedan. Heroes on site, backdraft, and washouts from the local agency. They are struggling to contain the vehicle safely. Izuku watched the feed. The villain driving was the phaser. He was phasing the van through roadblocks, making police barricades useless. They can't stop the car with physical barriers, Izuku said instantly, his fingers flying across the keyboard to pull up the schematic of the highway. The driver is phasing the entire vehicle on impact, but phasing usually requires breath control or concentration. If they disrupt his equilibrium, he scanned the map. There's a tunnel coming up in 3 kilometers. The acoustic resonance in there is high. If backdraft creates a pressurized water seal at the exit, it won't stop the car, but the sudden change in air pressure combined with the sound of the siren echoing, it will break his concentration, Kiara finished. Tell backdraft to aim for the ceiling of the tunnel exit, not the car, Izuku commanded. Create a water curtain. High pressure. Do it now. He watched on the screen as the order was relayed. He saw the hero, backdraft, adjust his aim. A massive wall of water slammed into the tunnel exit just as the van entered. The van didn't phase. It slammed into the water like it was concrete, spun out, and crashed into the guardrail. Target immobilized, Kiara said. Suspects apprehended. Good work, Alpha. Izuku watched the heroes swarm the van. He watched them drag the villains out. He watched the civilians in the cars behind them cheering. He felt nothing. No adrenaline. No rush of saving a life. It was just data. Input and output. Is that it? Izuku asked. For now. Stand by for the daily debrief. The screens went dark, replaced by the spinning logo of the HPSC. Izuku took off the headset and set it on the desk. He looked at his hands. They were trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the pent-up energy of one for all buzzing beneath his skin. He needed to run. He needed to smash something. He needed to be out there. He dropped to the floor and started doing push-ups. 1 arm. 2 fingers. 1, 2, 3. They don't know, he whispered to the floor. They don't know I'm here. 4, 5. The door chimed again. But this time, the light on the keypad turned green. The heavy hydraulic hiss of the blast door opening filled the room. Izuku stopped mid-push-up. There was only one person allowed to physically enter the glass box. I am here, a voice said, lacking its usual boom. Izuku flipped to his feet, wiping sweat from his forehead. All Might. Tashinori Yagi stood in the doorway. He held a plastic bag from a convenience store. He looked thinner than he had 2 weeks ago. His suit hung loosely off his shoulders, and the shadows under his eyes were deep purple bruises. Young Midoriya, Tashinori said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I brought pork buns. I know the nutrition paste they give you is lacking. Thank you, Izuku said. He gestured to the small table in the corner. They sat. The air was thick with things unsaid. Tashinori unpacked the buns, the steam rising in the cool, conditioned air. How are they? Izuku asked before he even took a bite. He didn't specify who they were. Tashinori sighed, his skeletal hand resting on his knee. They are resilient. Class 1A is back in rotation. The school has been fortified. It's a fortress now. The evacuation shelters are operating at capacity. And Kaken? His injuries? He is healed. Physically. Tashinori looked down at the table. He is angry, Izuku. He screams at the teachers daily. He demands to know where you were transferred. He almost blew up the principal's door yesterday. Izuku smiled, a small, sad thing. That sounds like him. Young Uraraka and young Ida are quieter. They are focusing on their patrols. But there is a hole in the class. A vacuum. I shouldn't be here, Izuku said, gripping the pork bun until the dough deformed. I should be filling that vacuum. Shigaraki is out there healing. I'm sitting here eating snacks. You are working, Tashinori insisted. The reports from the HPSC are glowing. Your tactical analysis has increased arrest rates by 40% in sectors where you are assisting. You are saving lives. I'm playing a video game, All Might. Izuku stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. I'm watching people get hurt on a screen and telling someone else how to fix it. That's not being a hero. That's being a calculator. It is keeping you alive. Tashinori stood too, his voice rising. Do you have any idea how close we came to losing everything? If Shigaraki gets one for all, there is no next generation. There is no future. You are the vessel of the world's hope. We cannot risk the vessel cracking. I'm not a vessel! Izuku shouted, tears pricking his eyes. I'm a person. I'm your student. Silence stretched between them. Tashinori deflated, sinking back into his chair. He looked old. So incredibly old. I know, Tashinori whispered. I know. And I hate this. I hate this room. I hate that I had to sign the papers to put you here. But I promised your mother I would keep you safe. I failed to keep you safe on the battlefield. I won't fail to keep you safe here. Izuku looked at his mentor. He saw the guilt eating him alive. He realized, with a pang of heartache, that this prison wasn't just for Izuku's safety. It was for All Might's peace of mind. Izuku sat back down. He took a bite of the cold pork bun. It tasted like ash. Can we train? Izuku asked softly. In here? I've been trying to unlock the float quirk more consistently. But without a sparring partner, Tashinori looked up, relief washing over his face at the change of subject. Yes. Yes, of course. I can't do much, but I can offer guidance. The fourth user's quirk. Danger sense. Have you felt a trigger? Sometimes, Izuku said, rubbing his temple. Even in here. It's faint. Like a buzzing in the distance. It means people are hurting somewhere. It never stops. We will work on dampening it, Tashinori said. Meditation. Focus. They spent the next hour training. It was limited. Izuku couldn't go past 10% without risking damage to the room's sensors, and Tashinori could only offer verbal corrections. It felt like practicing swimming in a bathtub. When the buzzer sounded, signaling the end of visitation, Tashinori looked reluctant to leave. I'll be back in 2 days, he promised at the door. All Might? Izuku called out. Tashinori paused. Don't tell them anything, Izuku said, looking at the floor. If they think I'm safe and happy, maybe they'll stop looking. I don't want them to get in trouble. Tashinori nodded, his eyes wet. The door hissed shut. The lock engaged with a heavy thud. Izuku was alone again. The sky on the ceiling turned to amber. Simulated sunset. 3 days later. The alarm that woke him was not the gentle morning chime. It was a klaxon. Red lights strobed in the corners of the room. Asset Alpha to the console immediately. Kiara's voice was urgent. Priority 1 situation. Izuku was out of bed and in the chair in 3 seconds. He shoved the headset on. Status? Complex villain attack in the Shibuya district. Multiple high-end Nomu signatures detected. But they aren't fully grown. They look like the near high-ends from Jaku. They're fast, coordinated, and targeting infrastructure. The screens lit up. It was chaos. Smoke billowed from a partially collapsed skyscraper. The streets were choked with debris. Who is on the ground? Izuku demanded, his fingers flying. Team Endeavor, Kiara said. Endeavor is engaging the primary threat in the air. Ground team is handling the secondary targets and evacuation. Izuku pulled up the body cam feeds of the ground team. His heart skipped a beat. The feeds were labeled Dynamite. Shoto. Burnin. It's them, Izuku breathed. Focus, Alpha, Kiara snapped. We have a situation in Sector 4. The evacuation route is cut off. We need a path. Izuku forced himself to breathe. He looked at Bakugo's feed. The camera was shaking violently. Bakugo was moving fast, explosions rocking the frame. He was shouting orders, his voice distorted by the microphone but unmistakably aggressive. Get the hell out of the way. Icy hot, wall off the alley. Don't let those black things flank us. I'm trying, Todoroki's voice was calm but strained. They're too fast. They're jumping between the buildings. Izuku analyzed the movement patterns of the Nomu. There were 3 of them on the ground. They were smaller than the ones at Jaku, but agile. They were using the verticality of the city, bouncing off windows to avoid Todoroki's eyes. They're hunting in a pack, Izuku said into the mic. Kiara, patch me through to the local command channel. I need to direct the ground units. Negative, Kiara said. You are strictly analyst. You provide data to me, I relay it to the police chief, he relays it to the heroes. That's too slow. Izuku shouted, watching a Nomu swipe narrowly miss Bakugo's head. Look at the lag. By the time you relay, they'll be dead. The Nomu are baiting them. One is feigning a retreat to draw Bakugo into the intersection. The other 2 are waiting on the overhangs above. Kiara hesitated. She saw the data. She saw the trap. Patching you in as Oracle, she said. Voice Scrambler is active. Do not identify yourself. Do not engage in personal conversation. Tactical commands only. If you breach protocol, I cut the line. Just do it. A click. A buzz of static. Then, the chaotic sounds of the battlefield flooded Izuku's ears in real time. The explosions were deafening. Flanking left. Burn in, cover the rear. Bakugo was yelling. Izuku took a breath. He had to be calm. He had to be the computer. Ground team, this is Oracle, Izuku said, his voice emerging as a deep, digitized monotone. Halt advance. It is a trap. On the screen, Bakugo faltered for a fraction of a second. Who the hell is this? Get off the comms. The retreating target is a lure, Izuku continued, ignoring the insult. 2 hostiles are cloaked on the 3rd story overhangs directly above the intersection. If you pursue, you will be pinched. Cloaked? Todoroki asked. I don't see heat signatures. They are cold-blooded types, Izuku explained, reading the thermal scans rapidly. They match the ambient temperature of the glass. Todoroki, flash freeze the building facades on the east and west corners. The ice will reveal their outlines. There was a pause. Then, a massive wave of ice shot up the sides of the buildings on the feed. As the frost settled, 2 grotesque shapes were revealed, clinging to the walls like gargoyles. Their camouflage flickered and failed. Gotcha, Bakugo growled. He launched himself upward, spinning like a drill. AP shot, autocannon. The explosions shredded the glass and the Noma. The creatures shrieked and fell to the street. Good effect, Izuku said, his hands gripping the edge of the console. Now the 3rd one, the bait. It's circling back. It's going to target the support beams of the overpass to drop it on the evacuees. I'm on it, Burnin shouted, jetting toward the overpass. No, Izuku corrected. Burnin is too slow for that angle. Dynamite, use the explosion recoil to launch immediately to Vector 220. You have to intercept midair. Don't tell me what to do, computer voice. Bakugo yelled, but his body moved instantly. He blasted off the wall, intercepting the 3rd Nomu just as it prepared to strike the pillar. He blasted it into the pavement. Izuku exhaled. Threats neutralized. Secure the perimeter. Who is this guy? One of the sidekicks asked on the channel. He's seeing things before they happen. Just some HPSC desk jockey, Bakugo scoffed, landing on the hood of a crushed car. He wiped soot from his mask. Annoying, but not useless. Izuku felt a strange warmth in his chest. Not useless. Oracle to ground team, Izuku said. New signatures detecting 3 blocks east. Reinforcements required. The battle dragged on for another 20 minutes. Izuku fell into a rhythm. He was the eye in the sky. He guided Todoroki's ice walls to create funnels. He timed Bakugo's blasts to maximize impact and minimize structural damage. It was a dance, and for the first time in weeks, Izuku felt like he was dancing with them. He forgot the cage. He forgot the scrambler. He was just Deku, mumbling strategies. Shoto, watch your left flank, heat accumulation is slowing you down, he muttered. Kaken, switch to stun grenade, too much smoke is blinding the sidekicks. Copy, Todoroki said. Shut up, I know. Bakugo yelled. Then, disaster struck. A 4th Nomu, a hulking beast with 4 arms, erupted from the sewers directly beneath the heroes. It hadn't been on the thermal scans. It was cold, silent, and massive. It grabbed Todoroki by the leg and slammed him into a storefront. Shoto! Bakugo screamed, turning around. The Nomu was fast. It released Todoroki and lunged for Bakugo, its fist cocked back, glowing with kinetic energy. Bakugo was mid-turn. He was off balance. He couldn't dodge. Izuku saw it on the screen. He saw the trajectory. He saw the death blow coming. The panic flared white-hot. The Oracle persona shattered. Kaken! Duck right. Blast jump now. The voice scrambler couldn't handle the sheer volume and pitch of the scream. For a split second, the digital distortion cracked. The raw, terrified voice of Izuku Midoriya punched through the comms. On the battlefield, time seemed to freeze. Bakugo's eyes widened behind his mask. The nickname. The voice. The desperation. His body reacted on instinct, drilled into him by a decade of rivalry and childhood games. He dropped his shoulder and blasted the ground with his right hand, rocketing to the side. The gnome's fist occupied the space where his head had been a millisecond before. The shockwave shattered every window on the block. Bakugo tumbled, recovered, and unleashed a howitzer impact point-blank into the gnome's face. The creature crumbled. Silence fell over the street. The dust settled. Bakugo stood panting, his chest heaving. But he wasn't looking at the defeated gnome. He was staring at his earpiece. He was staring at the sky. Kaken! Izuku whispered, realizing what he had done. He slapped his hands over his mouth. Deku? Bakugo's voice was low, trembling with a mix of disbelief and fury. Cut the feed! Kira yelled in the control room. Cut it now, DKU! Bakugo screamed into the comms, grabbing the device in his ear. I know that was you. Where are you? Answer me, you damn nerd! Static hissed. Kira had severed the connection. Rerouting audio, Kiara said, her face pale. Scrambler rebooting. We need to go dark. But on the screen, the video feed was still live. Izuku watched in horror. Bakugo was raging. He was grabbing the sidekicks, shaking them. Trace that signal. Trace it right now. He was on the line. Todoroki was pulling himself out of the rubble, looking confused. Midoriya? Bakugo looked up at a security camera, the very camera Izuku was watching through. It felt like he was looking directly into Izuku's soul. You think you can hide? Bakugo roared at the camera, explosions popping in his hands. I'll find you. I'll tear this whole damn city apart until I find you. The screen went black. System lockdown initiated, Kiara announced. Asset Alpha, step away from the console. Izuku sat frozen. His hands were shaking violently now. The silence of the bunker rushed back in, heavier than before. The hum of the server sounded like a flatline. He had saved them. But he had broken the one rule that kept the operation secure. Izuku stammered. I had to. He was going to die. Kira walked into the room. The door hissed open. She didn't look angry. She looked resigned. You saved him, she admitted. But you just compromised the entire stronghold protocol. Do you know what Bakugo Katsuki is going to do now? Izuku nodded slowly. He knew exactly what Kaken would do. He would never stop. He would burn down the world to find the truth. He's going to hunt us, Izuku whispered. Yes, Kira said. And Shigaraki will be watching him do it. She tapped her tablet. No more live ops. From now on, you are strictly archival. We are locking down external comms indefinitely. Wait, you can't. Izuku pleaded, standing up. They need me. You saw that. They almost died without my intel, and they almost found you with it, Kira countered coldly. The risk is too high. Go to your room, Midoriya. She turned and left. The blast door slammed shut. The lock engaged. Izuku stood in the center of the vast, empty room. The monitors were black. The headset lay on the desk, a piece of dead plastic. He looked up at the ceiling. The fake sky was transitioning. The sunset was beginning. The amber light washed over the gray concrete, casting long, lonely shadows. Izuku walked to the wall, the farthest wall. He placed his forehead against the cold steel. He closed his eyes. He could still hear Bakugo's voice ringing in his ears. I'll find you. He slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor, pulling his knees to his chest. Please, he whispered to the empty room. Please find me. The glass box was safe. The glass box was secure. But for the first time, Izuku Midoriya realized that the glass box was also a coffin. And he was still alive inside it. The silence in the Heights Alliance dormitories was not empty. It was heavy. It possessed a physical weight, pressing down on the shoulders of the 19 students of Class 1A like a wet wool blanket. It had been 4 weeks. 28 days since the evacuation. 28 days since the war ended in a Pyrrhic victory that left society fracturing at the seams. And 28 days since Izuku Midoriya had vanished. The official story, disseminated by Principal Nizu and corroborated by a hollow-eyed All Might, was that Midoriya had suffered quirk-specific complications requiring isolation in a specialized overseas medical facility. They said his limbs needed reconstruction that Japanese medicine couldn't currently provide. They said he was in a coma-like state to preserve his energy. They said he was safe. Nobody believed it. Not really. Ochako Uraraka sat in the common room, staring at the rain lashing against the reinforced glass of the patio doors. The sky was a bruised purple, the remnants of a typhoon passing over Muzurifu. The storm matched the mood inside. You're staring again, Karo, Tsuyu Ajui said softly, placing a mug of hot tea on the table in front of Uraraka. Uraraka blinked, breaking her trance. Oh. Thanks, Tsu. He'll be okay, Tsuyu said, sitting down. Her usual bluntness was softened by worry. Midoriya-chan is tough. I know, Uraraka whispered. She wrapped her hands around the warm mug. But it feels wrong, doesn't it? The way they took him. We didn't even get to say goodbye. And that day at the loading dock, I swear I saw him looking at us. Across the room, Tenya Ida was polishing his glasses. He had been polishing them for 20 minutes. The lenses were likely thinner by now. We must trust the faculty, he said, though his voice lacked its usual robotic conviction. If All Might says it is necessary, then it is necessary. Midoriya's quirk is volatile. We saw what it did to him. Bullshit. The word cracked through the room like a whip. Katsuki Bakugo stood in the kitchen doorway. He wasn't wearing his uniform. He was wearing a black tank top and cargo pants, his arms crossed over his chest. His muscles were tense, veins popping in his forearms. He looked like a coiled spring that had been wound too tight for too long. Bakugo, Ida warned, putting his glasses back on. Language, I said it's bullshit, Bakugo growled, stalking into the room. He ignored the others, heading straight for the window to glare at the storm. He isn't in a coma. And he isn't overseas. Cats, Eijiro Kurishima said from the sofa, looking up from a textbook he hadn't turned a page of in an hour. Don't start this again. All Might said. All Might is a terrible liar, Bakugo snapped. He turned, his red eyes burning with a feverish intensity. And I heard him. 3 days ago. During the Shibuya incident, the room went quiet. They had all heard about Bakugo's outburst during the Nomu attack. The reports said he had hallucinated from exhaustion. It was a glitch, Bakugo, Shoto Todoroki said from his corner, where he was reading a news report about Endeavor. The comms were damaged. You heard static and your brain filled in the gaps. It wasn't static. Bakugo slammed his hand against the glass, startling Kaminari. It was him. He called out the attack pattern. He told me to duck. Kaken. Nobody calls me that but him. Nobody. Maybe you wanted to hear him, Momo Yayorozu suggested gently. We all miss him, Bakugo-san. Trauma can manifest in auditory. I am not traumatized. Bakugo roared, small explosions popping in his palms. I am pissed off. He's here. Somewhere. They've got him working a desk like a damn sidekick, hiding him away while we do the grunt work. I know it. He stormed away from the window, grabbing his jacket off the couch. Where are you going? Kurishima asked, standing up. Out, Bakugo spat. Patrol. Since the symbol of peace is too busy playing hide-and-seek to do his job, the front door slammed shut behind him, leaving the class in the heavy silence once more. Uraraka looked at the empty spot on the couch where Deku used to sit, scribbling in his notebooks, muttering about hero stats. She looked at the door. It's like, the sun went out, she whispered. The bunker. Sub-level 4. Izuku Midoriya was not the sun. He was a ghost. He sat in the dark, the only illumination coming from the blue glow of the 6 monitors wrapping around him. His eyes were bloodshot. He hadn't shaved in days, and a scruffy patch of green stubble covered his jaw. Target vector confirmed, he murmured into the headset. His voice was flat. Monotone. Villain is moving through the sewers. Exit point probable at manhole 44B. Send Kamui Woods to intercept. Copy that, Oracle. The voice of a police dispatcher crackled in his ear. On the screen, he watched the thermal dots move. He watched the heroes converge. He watched the capture. It was flawless. Mathematical. Target secured, the dispatcher said. Good work, Oracle. Izuku didn't respond. He pulled the headset off and dropped it onto the desk. Session complete, the automated voice of the room announced. Rest period initiated. Izuku swiveled his chair around. The room was exactly the same as it had been yesterday. And the day before. The fake sky on the ceiling was currently displaying night mode, a field of static stars that never twinkled. He stood up and walked to the wall. He pressed his hand against the cold concrete. He felt itchy. It wasn't a skin condition. It was a sensation deep under his dermis, in the fibers of his muscles. It was one for all. The power had been stockpiling for weeks with nowhere to go. It was a pressurized engine idling in a garage, vibrating the floorboards, begging to be revved. Status report, Agent Kira said over the intercom. She didn't sound like a person anymore. She sounded like a warden. I'm fine, Izuku said. Your cortisol is spiking again. Do you require a sedative to sleep? No, Izuku said quickly. No sedatives. I need to move. Can I use the gym? Gym privileges are suspended until 0600 hours. Go to sleep, Asset Alpha. The intercom clicked off. Izuku stared at the camera in the corner. He hated it. He hated the red light that followed him. He felt like a specimen in a jar. He walked to the bed and lay down, staring at the fake stars. He closed his eyes, trying to force his breathing to slow. In. Out. In. Out. But when he closed his eyes, he didn't see darkness. He saw the loading dock. He saw his friends. He saw the disappointment on their faces. They think I abandoned them. The thought was a parasite, eating away at his resolve. Sleep eventually took him, but it was not a restful sleep. It was a plummet. The vestige world. The realm of One for All was usually a place of mist and vague shapes. Tonight, it was a storm. Izuku stood on a jagged rock, surrounded by a swirling vortex of black smoke and green lightning. The ground beneath him rumbled. You are rusting, Ninth. The voice was sharp, cutting through the wind. Izuku turned. The second user stood there. He was a man of war, his face scarred, his gauntlets heavy. He wasn't looking at Izuku with the mentorship of All Might or the kindness of Nana. He was looking at him with disdain. I'm doing what I have to do, Izuku shouted over the wind. I'm keeping the power safe. Safe? The second user scoffed. He stepped closer, his boots crunching on the ethereal stone. You are a weapon. A weapon kept in a velvet box does not stay sharp. It dulls. It forgets the weight of blood. I haven't forgotten, haven't you? The second user pointed a finger at Izuku's chest. You sit in a chair. You watch screens. You play general while your soldiers bleed. Is that why we gave you this power? To be a strategist? Leave him be, a gentler voice interjected. Nana Shimura emerged from the mist. She looked sad. Her cape fluttered in the phantom wind. She placed a hand on the second's arm, but she looked at Izuku with pity. He is suffering, second. Can't you feel it? Suffering is part of the job, the second snapped, shaking her off. But this passivity? It is an insult to the ones who died to pass this torch. We fought all for one in the mud. In the streets. We didn't hide in bunkers. I didn't choose this. Izuku screamed, the frustration of the last month exploding out of him. The lightning around him flared, turning purple. They locked me up. They said if I go out there, the world ends. What am I supposed to do? The fourth user, Haikyuu Shinomori, stepped forward. The cracks on his face glowed. Danger sense is screaming, Ninth. Not from the outside. From you. Your spirit is eating itself. Tell me how to get out, Izuku pleaded, falling to his knees. Tell me what to do. The first user, Yoichi, appeared. He was small, frail, yet his presence silenced the storm. He walked to Izuku and knelt down, looking him in the eyes. We cannot open the door for you, Izuku, Yoichi whispered. The cage they built is strong. But the cage is not the problem. What is the problem? Yoichi placed a hand over Izuku's heart. The problem is that you are starting to believe you belong in it. The world shattered. The incident. 2 days later. 1400 hours. The weather had not improved. The rain had turned into a deluge, flooding the lower districts of Mizurifu. Izuku was at his console. He was currently monitoring a relief effort in the flooded zone. It was supposed to be routine. Rescue civilians trapped in basements, secure loose power lines. Asset Alpha, we have a code red interruption. Kira's voice cut in, sharp and panicked. Sector 7. The bridge. Izuku's fingers flew across the keyboard. He pulled up the traffic cameras for the Great Naruto Bridge. His blood ran cold. A villain stood in the center of the suspension bridge. He was massive, easily 8 feet tall, clad in crude armor made of scrap metal and street signs. His skin was gray and rocky. Designation, tectonic. Kira, read the file. An escapee from a maximum security transport. Quirk, vibration generation. He can destabilize molecular bonds. Tectonic wasn't just standing there. He was vibrating. The air around him shimmered. The suspension cables of the bridge were humming, singing a deadly song of tension. And standing opposite him, blocking his path to the city center, was a squad of heroes. Class 1A, Izuku breathed. It was Ida, Uraraka, Kirishima, Tsu, and Sato. They were the relief team assigned to the area. They weren't prepared for a heavy hitter. They need backup, Izuku said, his voice rising. Send Ryukyu. Send Endeavor. Ryukyu is 20 minutes out. Endeavor is in Tokyo. They are on their own, Alpha. Guide them. Izuku stared at the screen. The image was grainy due to the rain. Ida? Izuku barked into the mic, slipping into Oracle mode. He's charging a localized quake. Do not engage in melee. He will shatter your armor. On the screen, Ida hesitated. He tapped his earpiece. Oracle? Is that you? Listen to me. Spread out. Uraraka, float the debris to create a barrier, but don't get close. But Tectonic didn't wait. He stomped his foot. A shockwave ripped through the asphalt. The bridge buckled. Cars were thrown into the air like toys. Look out! Kirishima yelled on the feed. Kirishima hardened, diving in front of Uraraka as a slab of concrete flew toward her. The impact smashed him into the guardrail. He didn't get up immediately. Kirishima? Izuku shouted. Status. I'm good, Kirishima groaned, but his voice was strained. My armor, cracked. He hits harder than muscular, Izuku analyzed rapidly. His vibrations bypassed durability. Kirishima, you can't tank him. You have to dodge. We can't dodge the whole bridge collapsing. Sato yelled. Tectonic roared, grabbing a suspension cable. He began to pull. The main tower of the bridge groaned. If that tower fell, hundreds of civilians trapped in the traffic jam behind them would plunge into the stormy sea below. He's going to drop the bridge, Izuku realized. He needs to be knocked out. Instantly. A concussive blow to the head. We don't have the firepower, Ida said, panic creeping into his voice. Bakugo and Todoroki are in the other sector. Sato. Izuku commanded. Eat all the sugar you have. Max output. You and Kirishima have to throw Ida. Ida, Recipro Turbo. Aim for the jaw. Copy. Izuku watched as Sato downed a packet of sugar. He and Kirishima linked hands, forming a launch pad. Ida revved his engines, blue fire spitting from his calves. Now! Izuku screamed. Ida launched. He was a silver bullet cutting through the rain. He closed the distance in a blink. Tectonic grinned. He didn't try to dodge. He simply opened his mouth and let out a resonant scream. The sound wave hit Ida in midair. It wasn't just noise. It was a physical wall of force. Ida's armor shattered. His engines stalled. He was batted out of the air like a fly, crashing violently into the windshield of a bus. Ingenium! Uraraka screamed. No. Izuku stood up, knocking his chair over. Ida? Respond. Static. Tectonic laughed. He wrapped both hands around the cable. The metal began to scream. Snap. 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 Let me go, Izuku said. He wasn't talking to the team. He was talking to the room. Negative, Kiara said calmly. Reinforcements are 10 minutes out. They'll be dead in 10 minutes. Izuku yelled at the ceiling. Open the doors. I can make it there. I can use float and FA gene. I can save them. Asset Alpha, stand down. Your heart rate is critical. On the screen, Uraraka was running. She wasn't running away. She was running toward the villain. She picked up a piece of rebar, her face twisted in a mixture of terror and determination. Ochako, don't. Izuku begged. You can't get close. He'll kill you. She couldn't hear him. The calms were flooded with static. She lunged. Tectonic backhanded her without even looking. It was a casual, dismissive swat. Uraraka flew backward. She hit the guardrail, flipped over it, and disappeared into the churning gray water below. Ochako! Izuku slammed his fists onto the console. The reinforced glass of the monitors cracked. Open the door! He roared. One for all flooded his body. Red lines appeared on his skin. Let me out! Administering sedative, the computer announced. A hiss of gas filled the room. Venting from the ceiling. No! Izuku covered his mouth. He looked at the screen. Tsuyu was diving off the bridge after Uraraka. Tectonic was ripping the final cable. The bridge was tilting. Izuku punched the blast door. A dent appeared in the 3-inch steel. He punched it again. His knuckles split. Blood smeared on the metal. Smash. 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 Let me save them. He sobbed, his blows getting weaker as the gas took effect. I'm right here. I'm right here. His vision blurred. The room spun. He slumped against the door, sliding down until he hit the floor. The last thing he saw before the darkness took him was the feed cutting to black as the bridge collapsed. The aftermath. He woke up in the medical bay of the bunker. He was strapped down again. Calm down, Dr. Arata said, checking a monitor. They survived. Izuku stopped struggling. He looked at the doctor with wild, desperate eyes. What? Ajui caught Uraraka, the doctor said, his tone clinical. Ryukyu arrived just in time to catch the falling segment of the bridge. Casualties were minimal. Your classmates are in the hospital, but stable. Broken bones. Concussions. But alive. Izuku let out a breath that was half sob. They were alive. You, however, the doctor continued, pointing to Izuku's hands, are a problem. Izuku looked at his hands. They were heavily bandaged. The knuckles were raw meat underneath the gauze. You fractured 3 metacarpals punching the door, the doctor scolded. Do you have any idea how valuable those hands are? You damaged a multi-million-dollar asset. Asset. The word echoed in Izuku's head. Not person. Asset. I want to go back to my room, Izuku whispered. Not until we run a psych evaluation. You demonstrated extreme instability. I said I want to go back to my room. Izuku snarled. The danger sense buzzed in the room, making the doctor flinch. They moved him back an hour later. The room was repaired. The dent in the door was gone. The monitors were replaced. It was as if his outburst had never happened. The fake sky was blue again. Izuku walked to the center of the room. He stood there for a long time. They almost died. He looked at his bandaged hands. I am resting. He looked at the comfortable bed. The nutrient paste on the table. The hero analysis notebooks stacked neatly on the shelf. It was a lie. All of it. This wasn't safety. This was a slow death. They were keeping his body alive, but they were killing the hero. And if the hero died, one for all died with it. Izuku walked to the bed. He grabbed the frame, heavy, bolted to the floor steel. He gripped it with his bandaged hands. The pain was sharp, searing through the drugs they had given him. Good. The pain was real. He activated one for all. Not 45%. Just 5%. Enough to circulate the power. He started to lift. The bolts groaned. The floor screeched. Asset Alpha, Kiara's voice warned. Stop damaging the furniture. Izuku didn't stop. He did a squat, lifting the heavy frame with him. Then another. Midoriya, stop. No, Izuku gritted out. He dropped the bed and dropped to the floor. Push-ups. 1, 2, 3. We will turn off the gravity scrubbers, Kiara threatened. We will make it harder. Do it! Izuku yelled, pushing himself up, sweat flying from his face. Make it heavy! Make it hurt! He needed the pain. He needed to remember that he was flesh and blood. He needed to prepare, because the second user was right. The cage wasn't the problem. His acceptance of it was. But the acceptance was gone now. Washed away by the image of Uraraka falling into the sea, Izuku pushed against the floor until his arms shook, until the bandages on his hands bloomed red with fresh blood. He wasn't training to fight Shigaraki anymore. He was training to break out. Yue hospital wing. Uraraka lay in the hospital bed, her leg in a cast. She was staring at the ceiling. The door opened. Bakugo entered. He didn't knock. He looked furious. He walked to the side of her bed and threw a small device onto her lap. It was a fragment of a recording device he had salvaged from the destroyed comms unit Ida had been wearing. Listen, Bakugo commanded. Uraraka picked it up. She pressed play. It was mostly static. But then, for a brief second, cutting through the noise of the collapsing bridge, there was a voice. A voice screaming in pure, unadulterated agony. "Oh Chaco!" Uraraka froze. Her eyes filled with tears. "Is that?" "Yeah," Bakugo said, his voice low and dangerous. "That was the nerd. Watching us get our asses kicked." He leaned in, placing his hands on the bed rails. "He's watching us, round face. He saw you fall. And he sounded like he was dying because he couldn't do anything about it." Uraraka gripped the recorder. "Where is he, Bakugo?" "I don't know yet," Bakugo said, standing up straight. A terrifying grin spread across his face, not a smile of joy, but a smile of a wolf that had caught a scent. "But I traced the signal bounce. It didn't come from overseas. It came from underground. Somewhere near the prefecture border." "What are we going to do?" Uraraka asked, wiping her eyes. The sadness was gone, replaced by a cold resolve. "We heal up," Bakugo said. "And then? We go get our idiot back." The nicknames started in the police precincts first. Then it trickled down to the sidekicks, whispered in the break rooms of agencies from Hokkaido to Kyushu. Finally, it reached the message boards and the conspiracy forums of the internet. The Oracle. Nobody knew who he was. Some said it was a new AI developed by Island, capable of processing millions of variables per second. Others claimed it was a retired pro with a foresight quirk who had come out of hiding. The truth was far less glamorous. The truth was a 16-year-old boy sitting in a reinforced concrete box 300 feet underground, staring at a wall of monitors until his eyes burned and his vision blurred. It had been 32 days. Izuku Midoriya sat in the ergonomic command chair that had become his entire world. He was thinner now. The nutrient paste provided by the HPSC kept his caloric intake perfect, but it couldn't account for the calories burned by stress, by the constant, low-level hum of one for all vibrating in his nerves, and by the sheer mental exhaustion of playing God with human lives. "Sector 4, adjust vector," Izuku said into his headset. His voice was a rasp. He hadn't used it for casual conversation in weeks. Every word was a command. "Empty lady, you're drifting. There is a structural weakness in the overpass to your left. If you grow now, you'll collapse the evacuation route." On the screen, he watched the feed from Empty Lady's visor. She stopped her expansion instantly, stepping gingerly over the overpass instead. "Thanks, Oracle," she panted. "That was close. Don't thank me. Just move. You have 40 seconds before the sludge villain regenerates." Izuku tapped a key, switching feeds. A hostage situation in Osaka. "Snipe," Izuku said, his eyes scanning the blueprints of the bank. "The thermal currents in the lobby are shifting. The villain is heating the air to distort your aim. Aim 2 inches low and to the left of the target center. The refraction will correct the shot." "Copy that, Oracle." Bang. Target down. Hostage is clear. Izuku didn't blink. He didn't smile. He simply closed the window and opened the next one. Behind him, beyond the glass partition, Agent Kira watched him. She was writing on a clipboard. Her expression was a mixture of professional satisfaction and deep, human unease. "Performance metrics are up another 12%, she murmured to the technician beside her. "He's clearing incidents faster than the police can file the paperwork." "It's unnatural." "He's not sleeping, ma'am," the technician whispered back. "He overrides the sedative gas protocol. He holds his breath or filters it out with his quirk somehow. He just works." Inside the box, Izuku's hand trembled as he reached for his water bottle. He spilled a little on the desk. He stared at the puddle. Water. Rain. Uraraka falling into the ocean. He squeezed his eyes shut, forcing the image away. If he stopped working, he started thinking. If he started thinking, he remembered the look on Kaken's face on the screen. He remembered the feeling of wind. "Next file," Izuku commanded the room. "Asset Alpha," the computer chimed. "There are no active emergencies. All sectors are green. Izuku stared at the black screens. Panic clawed at his throat. Find one, he snapped. There's always something. Skin police scanners. Skin traffic cams. Find me something to fix. Scanning. He needed the distraction. He needed to be the Oracle. Because if he wasn't the Oracle, he was just Deku. And Deku was the boy who had been left behind. Yue High School. 2A classroom. The atmosphere in Class 2A, they had technically advanced, though it felt like a hollow promotion, was brittle. The carefree noise of the past was gone. Mineta didn't make perverted jokes. Kaminari didn't short-circuit his brain for laughs. Even Ishido's boundless energy had been dampened into a quiet, focused intensity. Aizawa stood at the podium. He looked worse than usual. His scar was stark against his pale skin, and he leaned heavily on the podium. Day's Hero Informatics period will focus on coordinated rescue ops, Aizawa droned. We will be reviewing the footage from the Shinjuku incident yesterday. He pressed a button. The holographic screen flickered to life. It showed a chaotic scene. A villain with a magma quirk was melting a city block. Heroes were scrambling. It looked like a disaster waiting to happen. Then, suddenly, the heroes moved. It was synchronized, perfect. Edge shot flanked right exactly as Best Genius pulled debris left. Mirko descended from the sky at the precise second the villain looked away. It was a symphony of violence, conducted by an invisible hand. Notice the timing, Aizawa said. This is perfect efficiency. It's too perfect, Tsuyu Ajui said. She was sitting at her desk, her hands folded tightly. They're reacting to commands before the threat even materializes. Who is leading them, Karo? Aizawa hesitated. Just for a fraction of a second. The operation was coordinated by HPSC Command. HPSC Command is a room full of bureaucrats, Katsuki Bakugo spoke up. He was leaning back in his chair, feet on the desk, staring at the ceiling. They don't think like that. That move Mirko did, using the steam from the magma to mask her entry vector? That's not protocol. That's improvisation. It doesn't matter who gave the order, Aizawa said sharply. What matters is the result. It matters if the person giving the orders is one of us, Ochako Uraraka said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried across the room. Aizawa looked at her. Uraraka wasn't the bubbly girl she used to be. Her eyes were hard. Her jaw was set. Since the bridge incident, she had trained until she threw up, then trained some more. Midoriya is overseas, Aizawa said, reciting the line he had been forced to memorize. He is undergoing treatment. Stop lying to us. Uraraka stood up, her chair clattering backward. We aren't first years anymore, Sensei. We fought a war. We watched cities fall. You can't protect us with lies, Uraraka, Ida warned gently, reaching for her arm. No, Ida. She pulled away. Look at the footage. Look at the strategy. Who is the only person we know who mutters about thermal updrafts and structural integrity? Who is the only person who knows exactly how every single pro-hero's quirk works? She pointed at the screen. That's not the HPSC. That's Deku. He's running the war from somewhere, and you know it. The silence in the room was suffocating. Aizawa looked at his students. He saw the pain in their eyes, the distrust that was festering like an infection. He hated the HPSC. He hated the commission president. He hated that he had to look his students in the eye and lie to protect a secret that was killing them. Class dismissed, Aizawa said abruptly. He grabbed his sleeping bag and walked out. He didn't deny it, Todoroki noted quietly. Of course he didn't, Bakugo growled, dropping his feet to the floor. Because round face is right. The nerd is the oracle. So what do we do? Kirishima asked, clenching his fists. If he's helping, maybe he's okay? Maybe he chose this. Midoriya wouldn't choose a desk, Tsuyu said, shaking her head. He lives to help people with his own hands. If he is doing this, he is being forced. Then we find him, Uraraka said. She picked up her bag. I'm done waiting for answers. We're going to get them. Where are you going? Momo asked. To the one person who can't lie to save his life, Uraraka said. All Might. The teacher's lounge. Tashinori Yagi sat alone in the corner of the lounge, staring at a cup of tea that had gone cold an hour ago. He was a shell. He spent his days coordinating with the HPSC and his nights visiting the bunker, bringing food that Izuku barely ate and news that Izuku barely listened to. The door opened. He expected President Mike or midnight. Instead, 3 students walked in: Uraraka, Ajui, Ida. They closed the door and locked it. Young Uraraka? All Might stood up, his skeletal frame unfolding nervously. You shouldn't be in here. This is a restricted area. Sit down, All Might, Uraraka said. There was no please. Tashinori blinked. He had faced All for One. He had held up buildings. But the look in Ochako Uraraka's eyes terrified him more than any villain. He sat. We know, Tsuyu said, stepping forward. We know Midoriya is the Oracle. We know he's in Japan. I don't know what you mean, Tashinori stammered, blood coughing slightly into his hand. Young Midoriya is in America. The specialists there are. Stop it, Ida said. His voice was trembling with suppressed emotion. Please, All Might. Stop insulting us. We are his best friends. Do you think we don't recognize his mind? Do you think we can't feel the hole he left behind? We tracked the signal bounce from the bridge incident, Uraraka lied. It was a bluff. Bakugo had only narrowed it to a prefecture, but she delivered it with absolute conviction. We know he's being held by the HPSC. We know he's a prisoner. Tashinori flinched. The word prisoner hit him like a physical blow. He is not a prisoner, Tashinori whispered, his defense crumbling. He is a protected asset. Asset, Uraraka repeated the word with venom. Is that what you call him now? Not your successor? Not your student? An asset? Tashinori put his head in his hands. You don't understand. The danger. Shigaraki. We don't care about Shigaraki. Uraraka slammed her hands on the table. We care about Deku. Is he happy, All Might? Look me in the eye and tell me he's happy. Tashinori looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed and hollow. He opened his mouth to lie, to say yes, he is safe and content, but the words died in his throat. He saw Izuku's face from his last visit, the dead eyes, the split knuckles, the way he stared at the fake sky. No, Tashinori breathed. He is dying inside. The admission hung in the air. Uraraka let out a sob, covering her mouth. Tsuyu wrapped an arm around her. Then let us see him, Ida demanded. If you can't get him out, at least let us talk to him. He needs to know we haven't forgotten him. I can't, Tashinori said. The facility is a black site. No signals in or out. It's hardwired. Hardwired? The voice came from the ventilation duct above them. The grate popped off, and a pink dreadlocked head poked out. Did someone say hardwired black site? Mei Hatsum asked, grinning maniacally. Because that sounds like a challenge. Hatsum? Ida exclaimed. How long have you been there? Following you guys is fun. You talk about secret conspiracies. Mei dropped from the ceiling, landing in a crouch. She adjusted her goggles. If it's hardwired, that means it has a physical connection to the HPSC mainframe. And if it has a connection, she pulled a tablet from her heavy utility belt. All Might, Mei said, pointing a wrench at the former number 1 hero. Give me the frequency code for the secure line you used to report to the commission. I cannot do that, All Might said weakly. It is treason. It's treason against the government, Uraraka said, stepping closer to him. But keeping him there is treason against us. Against everything UA stands for. She took All Might's hand. Her grip was gentle but firm. Please, she whispered. Let us save him. Just a little bit. Tashinori looked at the students. He saw the next generation. He saw the fire he used to have. He realized, with a heavy heart, that he had become the obstacle. He had become the wall Izuku always had to smash through. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a secure encrypted drive. The encryption key rotates every hour, Tashinori said softly. The next rotation is in 10 minutes. Mei snatched the drive. 10 minutes? I can do it in 5. The bunker. 1900 hours. Izuku was staring at a blank screen. The HPSC servers were undergoing a scheduled maintenance cycle, meaning he had a rare 20 minutes of downtime. Silence was the enemy. When it was silent, the voices came back. Not the vestiges. They had gone quiet lately, seemingly in protest of his confinement. These were his own doubts. You failed. You aren't a hero. You are a computer. He picked up his notebook. He tried to draw. He used to love drawing costume designs. Now, the pencil just hovered over the paper. He couldn't remember what inspiration felt like. Bzzzt. The central monitor flickered. Izuku looked up. Kiara? Is the maintenance done? No answer from the intercom. The screen flickered again. Static. Then, a burst of color. Pink specifically. Bandwidth is narrow, but I'm tunneling through the side door. Eat my babies, government firewall. Izuku blinked. Hatsum? The screen stabilized. It wasn't the HPSC logo. It was a grainy, slightly laggy video feed. It looked like it was coming from a webcam in a dark room, the development studio at UA. And standing there, crowded around the small lens, were faces he hadn't seen in 32 days. Uraraka. Ida. Tsuyu. Kirishima. Bakugo. Todoroki. Yaoyorozu. All of them. Izuku stopped breathing. He scrambled back in his chair, knocking his water bottle over. No, he whispered. No, no, no. It's a trick. It's a quirk. Deku? The voice was Uraraka's. It was tinny and distorted, but it was her. Izuku froze. He slowly reached out, his trembling fingers touching the screen. Uraraka? On the other end of the line, in the crowded studio, the class gasped. They saw him. They didn't see the number one hero. They saw a prisoner. Izuku was pale, his skin the color of old parchment. His hair was long and unkempt. He was wearing a gray t-shirt that hung off his frame. But it was his eyes that scared them. They were sunken, dull, devoid of the light that usually defined him. And behind him, they saw the concrete walls. The heavy blast door. Midoriya. Kirishima choked out. Dude. You look like crap. Izuku tried to smile. It was a fractured, painful thing. Hey guys. I didn't expect. How did you? Shut up about how, Bakugo snarled, pushing to the front of the camera. Where the hell are you? We're coming to get you. You can't, Izuku said quickly, panic rising. You can't be seeing this. If they trace this, you'll get in trouble. Please hang up. We aren't hanging up, Karo, Tsuyu said, wiping her eyes. We miss you, Midoriya-chan. Izuku's voice cracked. He bit his lip, tasting blood. I'm fine. Really. I'm helping. I'm doing really important work here. I'm keeping everyone safe. Stop lying! Uraraka yelled. Tears were streaming down her face. Look at yourself. You're in a cage. That's not helping. That's hiding. It's not hiding. Izuku shouted back, his composure snapping. It's the only way. If I go out there, Shigaraki wins. I have to stay here. I have to be the asset. The asset? Todoroki repeated coldly. Is that what they call you? It's what I am, Izuku whispered, looking down. I'm not a person anymore, guys. I'm just the one for all holder. And this is how I save the world. By disappearing. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Bakugo roared. You think you can save the world from a chair? You think we're just going to let you rot in a hole while we play hero? We are a team, you idiot. We frontline together. Not this time, Izuku said, tears finally spilling over. I'm sorry, Kaken. I'm sorry, everyone. But you have to forget about me. Just go be heroes. Please. Be heroes for me. Izuku, don't you dare, Uraraka pleaded, pressing her hand to the screen on her side. Don't say goodbye. Come home. We can protect you. We can fight him together. I can't, Izuku sobbed. I'm so scared. I want to go home so bad. But I can't. Suddenly, the red alarm lights in the bunker began to spin. Warning, the automated voice blared. Unauthorized signal detected. Breach in Sector 4. Initiating hard cut. They found us, Izuku said, looking at the ceiling in terror. You have to go. Clear the cache. Don't let them find you. Midoriya! Ida shouted. We aren't giving up. Do you hear me? We are coming. Wait for us, Deku. Uraraka screamed. Don't come! Izuku yelled. It's too dangerous. The screen fizzled. Static overtook the image of his friends. No. Izuku reached for the monitor. No, please don't go. Not yet. Just one more second. Click. The screen went black. Connection terminated, the computer announced. The silence that followed was absolute. It was heavier than before. It was a physical weight that crushed the air out of his lungs. Izuku sat in the dark, his hands still pressed against the cold glass of the monitor. The door to the bunker hissed. The locks disengaged. Agent Kira stormed in, followed by 4 armed guards. She looked furious. What did you do? She demanded. Who was that? Izuku didn't answer. He didn't look at her. He just stared at the black screen, seeing the afterimage of Uraraka's crying face. Midoriya! Kira shouted. Answer me. You just compromised the entire operation. Slowly Izuku turned his chair. He wasn't crying anymore. The tears had stopped. In their place was something else. Something cold. Something that looked a lot like the second user's rage. I didn't do anything, Izuku said softly. But you made a mistake. What? Kira blinked, taken aback by his tone. You let them see me, Izuku said. He looked at his hands. And now they aren't going to stop. Kira signaled the guards. Sedate him. He's agitated. We need to scrub the servers and relocate him to the secondary site immediately. The guards moved in. Izuku didn't fight. He let them stick the needle in his neck. He let the darkness take him, but as he drifted off, he didn't feel the usual despair. He felt a spark. A tiny, fragile ember of hope burning in the center of his chest. We are coming. Yui Development Studio. The screen in the studio had gone dead. Mei Hatsum was furiously typing, wiping their digital footprints. I'm scrubbing the trace. They won't know it was us. Probably. Nobody was listening to her. The class stood in a circle. The image of Izuku, skeletal, pale, broken, was burned into their retinas. Uraraka was wiping her tears, her face setting into a mask of stone. He's not okay, she said. Her voice was steady now. He's dying in there. They're treating him like a battery, Todoroki said, frost creeping up his right arm. It's inhumane. Bakugo was silent. He was staring at the floor, his shoulders shaking. Bakugo? Kirishima asked tentatively. Bakugo looked up. He wasn't crying. He was grinning. It was a terrifying, feral grin. He said he's the asset, Bakugo growled. He thinks he has to carry it alone. He turned to the group. We aren't students anymore, Bakugo declared. And we sure as hell aren't listening to the HPSC. What are you proposing? Ida asked, though he looked like he already knew the answer. He adjusted his glasses, the glint of light hiding his eyes. We tried asking nicely, Bakugo said. We tried logic. Now, he slammed his fist into his open palm, creating a small, sharp explosion. Now we go to war. We're breaking him out. That's treason, Momo said quietly. But she was already creating a blueprint in her mind. It's a rescue mission, Uraraka corrected. She looked at the blank screen one last time. And heroes don't ask for permission to save lives. When do we move? Todoroki asked. Bakugo looked at the window, toward the horizon where the sun was setting. As soon as we find out where they're moving him, Bakugo said. And I think I know how to make them tell us. He looked at Mei Hatsum. Can you build something that tracks a specific quirk signature? Something that can find one for all? Mei grinned, pulling down her goggles. Baby, I thought you'd never ask. The ghost of UA was no longer a ghost. He was a target. And Class 1A was on the hunt.